What's up, DIY queens? It's your design bestie, Cara Newhart, and this is Make Space.
Welcome back to Make Space. This episode I think is going to be very fun because it's story time. I'm going to share my journey of real estate investing in a very transparent way and try not to overshare too much because there's a lot of developments that are currently unfolding, and yes, it's like the story of my life that I just overshare. That's why I have a podcast, because I talk too much. But essentially, real estate investing has been always something I was attracted to from the very beginning. And it was always like a black box when I talked to people about it as far as like how to do it. I think it's a really hot topic now, especially in light of COVID. There's like the rise of the short-term rental market that happened during that era now is kind of uncertain as to what the future of that looks like. There's a lot of things at play on a large scale. Keep in mind, I was an economics major in college, so I'm a nerd. So I'm paying attention to all of this in terms of the market. Also thinking of like all these big corporations and hedge funds buying up single family homes and what that looks like for people with rents increasing. And there's all these big major factors. We will not be getting into those in this episode because number one, I think they're a little bit detached from the everyday person on their investment journey, especially if you're doing it on a small scale, like buying a house, renovating it, and then selling it 2 years later. It doesn't really help to know all the intricacies of that. Number two, I want this to be just kind of like my raw and real story of how I did what I did and what I'm doing, so that it can help you if you're interested in real estate investing to see kind of like what's possible. So there's no technicalities here in terms of market and loan types and how to specifically source funding. Like we're not going to get into that. This is more of the story of the journey. And I think that is a good starting point. If you don't know what you don't know and you don't even know where to get started, seeing an example and a template of what it could look like can inform what parts are for you and what are not. Okay, real estate investing first became on my radar, I would say, in high school. My dad was first an electrical contractor, so my job was crawling around in the hot attics with him, helping him fish wire. And then he kind of expanded that into building a few custom homes and selling them. And then through that process, decided to get his real estate license and sell homes, which I operate the same way. It's like I do one thing and then it illuminates like, oh, I could be doing this. And then I go try that. So he was very like jack of all trades, did a lot of things, but they were all related, like from electrical contracting to building homes to selling them. They were all in that wheelhouse. So I think that helped inform how my job is today with renovating houses, first my own and now a project house. So first came on my radar when in high school he got his real estate license and kind of started showing me like, this is what it could look like. You could have an investment property and people could pay you money. But obviously it's high school. Like I don't really care about that. I'm trying to go to college. I'm trying to have fun with my friends. I'm trying to decide what I want to do with my life. And so through that process, I am very creative. So I think deep in my heart, I wanted to go into something artsy, like art school. I think that was just discouraged from the get-go. Like there was never a moment where it was like, you could do that. It's like, no, that's a hobby. Like you need to pick something real, where you can make money. And so then my trajectory became, I'm going to get a job where I make so much money that I can do whatever I want. So that became my like life's mission, a roundabout way to just want to be creative. But here we are. So I went to OU in Oklahoma and my degree was in finance, economics, but it was like a specialized degree for energy. So oil and gas. So my degree was called energy management and it was centered around like going into the energy industry with big companies like ConocoPhillips or BP or all of that. So basically I was in the finance world in this very male dominated space. And a lot of the work I did centered around mineral rights. So like leasing people's rights to the minerals beneath the earth so that oil companies could come and drill oil wells on it. And then that person would be paid a percentage. So through this work of going into corporate in that field, I saw like the value of owning land, like that it could just make you so much money while you slept because these people didn't have to do anything. Like they just signed a paper and the oil company came in and they got all these checks. So that was like my first exposure to seeing, I guess, passive income besides just like you work and you get money. That was like, wait a second, you could get money without having to work. So yeah, roundabout path. Then we go into a fashion blog and that's like my initial ascent into being a content creator is I start a fashion blog because I need something fun on the side. And that's how we get into the trajectory of DIY, because no one likes my outfits because they're really bad. And I slowly but surely expand into lifestyle. Then I buy our first home. So that's really when like the real estate journey started, was just buying our house. This is something, it's like, I don't know, it's like two sides of one coin. So on one hand, my dad passes away. His health insurance leaves a small nest egg that is the down payment for our first house. So it's like you lose your dad, but you get to afford a house in an environment where as a millennial, it's difficult to be able to do that. Like you either need your parents' help, you need to save for years, or you need to just come from money to be able to buy your first house. So yeah, definitely bittersweet, but that's how we got our first house in Denver. It was not like, I'm going to invest in real estate. It's like, I want to buy a house because we have a 2-year-old and it feels like we need to like settle down. So at 25 or 26, we're looking around Denver. This is like, in Denver's era of just skyrocketing, like everyone's moving to Denver. Everyone's moving from like Iowa to go to the big city to make friends in Denver and hike. So Denver, the market is growing exponentially. There's not enough housing. Things are very expensive. This is pre-2020, so it only gets worse. But so basically we look at all these different areas. We end up settling on Stapleton, which is the old airport that has like, it's like empty because it's the old airport. They moved it. So it's this big chunk of land pretty close to downtown Denver. It's like a 10-minute train ride. And they build like this new planned community called Stapleton. And that's where we decide to buy, because buying a new build and waiting for it to get built was way cheaper than buying an existing house. So we buy our first house in Stapleton. It was so cool. It was on a courtyard. So they're all like tiny, like skinny shotgun houses, right? And then your yard is literally 10 feet out your side door. And then the next house is right there. So you had a 10-foot alley that was your yard. But then it was on a courtyard. So all the houses faced this courtyard in the middle. Everyone there had young kids. So it was like so fun because I had all these built-in mom friends. We'd just go out and lay down a blanket and drink wine and hang out. There's going to be a lot of sidebars here, just so you know. This has nothing to do with real estate investing, but it's like the market, how it was. Needless to say, that house was very desirable because it was a really cool area. It was new. So we lived there for 2 years and then decided to move to Texas because my husband was still in the oil and gas industry. And essentially every time the market constricts, oil and gas, they kind of shut down like satellite offices. So like the main office was in Houston. And so we decided to move there because if like the company shuts down or there's layoffs or whatever, you're in Houston, it's a lot easier to jump ship and work for another company. So I got dragged kicking and screaming to Houston. I did not want to go. I had lived there before in college interning and I loved Denver, like loved it. But the upside is that we sold our house for way above what we bought it for. Made a lot of money on that house because we'd moved in for 2 years. Things appreciated, and the appreciation was really good because it was Denver. They couldn't build houses fast enough for people to be able to move. So things were getting expensive. So that was 2019, right before COVID, right before things shut down. So then we moved to Houston. We stick with what we know and we buy a new build in a community. We were in the Woodlands, which is like north of Houston, kind of same like planned community suburban vibe, except this time there was like a larger yard. So yeah, we bought another new build. We had to wait for that to be built. And it was like a rinse and repeat. Like it was a really good area. The Woodlands didn't have really anywhere else after that community that was going to have new builds in it. So it was one of the last new houses in the Woodlands. So by that time, I had started like DIY projects in Denver, but like very small scale. Like this is when I was still scared to use the saw, right? So we're building shelves, furniture, mostly decorating versus like renovations. Like there was no ripping out a wall, definitely no cutting into drywall, like definitely not in a new house that was built. I will say that when in Denver, we went to the design studio to like pick things out, and like everything was an upcharge. So we kind of got like a bare bones. It was still nice because it was new, but it was like by no means fancy bells and whistles. I remember going through like everything you could add to the base package, and it was like you had to add everything. It was like build a house. Like, do you want a garage door opener, or are you gonna not like have that automated and have to get out and open your own garage door? So yeah, but at that time our budget was not very big, so we got bare bones, still nice. Then in Houston, the house we bought was a spec house, so everything was chosen for us. We didn't get to pick. But it was the same scenario of like nice, but not a lot of upgrades. So then I decide in that era is like when I really go into DIY, I like finally I'm not scared to use a saw, and I'm doing like major renovations. Like I'm ripping things out, I'm building things. I'm essentially still enhancing the house though, because it's like it's still a new house, but it's kind of like a blank canvas. So it needed a lot in terms of like trim work, added lighting, like renovating the bathrooms so they're more than just basic. So basically spent 2 years from 2019 to 2022, 21, renovating that house with my own two hands, which was the dream job with the pandemic. Like honestly, I know like a lot of people had the worst time with the pandemic. My sister was in healthcare as a nurse. There was so many people that had to be like, I don't know, so conscious of having to work out in dangerous situations, in really tough environments. I had it so easy. Like I was so blessed, but also it was just the perfect storm of picking a weird job as a DIY home content creator in an era where many people are stuck at home looking around like, I've not spent that much time here, and now that I have to live here all day, every day, I hate my house and it doesn't work for me. And I can't hire anyone because no one's allowed to be out. So what do I do? Like, I guess I have to do it. And so the perfect storm of helping be able to lead people through that process of taking on their own renovations. So I was, I guess, blessed in that era. Yeah, so that was a weird perfect storm. Anyway, all that to say is this is a very standard process of real estate investing. So in terms of a conservative investment, it's like buy a house, live in the house for 2 years, fix it up, and then sell it. 2 years has something to do with like mortgage and loan types. And you're building equity. You're also waiting for the house to appreciate. And you're also able to add value through renovations, but you're living there. So you don't have like your core house and then another house you're paying for as you renovate. You're paying for, like, you're living through the renovation, and that's basically like you get value for that. So that is like a conservative way to build real estate wealth. Number one, because it's easier. Like, it's easier to get one house than try to qualify for two if you're limited on money. It's also conservative because it's not an extra expense. Like, you don't have all these other mortgages you're paying for, where if the market drops and you get a call on your mortgage, you're like screwed and you lose the house. So if you are like, you're not looking as a real estate investor to necessarily like buy and manage properties or like spend time flipping and selling a house, you can build great wealth through just buying a house, living in it, renovating it, and selling it. And a lot of people do that, rinse and repeat over their whole life, and just kind of slowly like upgrade the house. Like, You start with the starter house, you fix it up, then you get a slightly nicer house, you fix it up, and you just kind of work your way up the ladder. That's great for people that have full-time jobs that don't necessarily have time to manage a ton of things, have small budget, move around a lot. Like if you're in the military or you're somewhere where you kind of live places for 2 years, that can be really great. But that's considered like a conservative investment strategy. So we're in Houston after COVID, where we just sat there and assessed our whole life. Honestly, like, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? How did we end up here? Are you really who I want to be with? Which we're still working that out. I won't give too much insight into that, but I will just say it was kind of at a point where I was like, I want out. Like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be married. I'm having a horrible time. I don't like you because I've had to stay with you in the same house for 2 years. And our house, we of course bought an open floor plan because open floor plans were all the rage, is knock out a wall and have your whole house be one big room. And we learned the hard way that basically we had this huge entryway that led into the living room and then an upstairs loft area that looked down into the living room, and then the kitchen was right there. And then it just felt like we were living in a giant hallway where everyone's bedroom had a door off of it, but there was no like privacy. Like you couldn't really go in a separate room unless it was in your bedroom where you couldn't hear or see someone, which was just, as an introvert, drove me nuts. And especially having like worked from home when my husband was at work, I got to have alone time, but during the pandemic did not. Yeah, so lots of life reassessing. And essentially what I boil this down to is I had done everything about like what I should do. Like, you got pregnant, so you should get married, so you should buy a house, so you should do this. Like, here's the template of the American dream of what you should want. You should want a brand new house in the suburbs. You should want then, when you move that from that house, to have a bigger house in better suburbs as you upgrade. And so it was just kind of a moment where it's like everything I had done to build my dream life, I had to come face to face with and be like, I don't want any of this. Like, I did all of this because I thought it would make me happy because society told me that's what I should do. And I was told, like, this is the recipe for happiness. Like, you build a little nuclear family with a brand new house and a really high paying job. And at that point, I was even a content creator with my own job that I got to build from scratch, doing something creative that I loved, that I never believed was possible. And still in that moment was unhappy. And there was a whole cycle around like guilt about that. Like, I'm so privileged and yet I'm so unhappy. Like, how can this be true? And like, what a horrible person am I to have all this privilege and all these amazing things and not be able to be happy? Like, so yeah, face to face with that decision, we sit down and I'm pretty much like, I want out. I want an open relationship. I want to explore other things that I never got to explore because I got pregnant right after college. So like May graduated, moved in with my then boyfriend, got pregnant in September. So I had like one summer of like young adulthood before I was pregnant and married and house. So I was like, I want to explore other things. And so the conclusion is like, okay, well, if we were to get divorced, we wouldn't do it in Houston. Like, we have no family. We moved here for a job. He at that time was actually also unhappy with his job because the same thing, like you go to corporate and you have this high paying job that you're in for 7 years. And why aren't you happy? You're making so much money. And so the compromise was like, I get to pick where we live because I followed you around through all these cities and you get to quit your job. So we'll downsize our house, sell the big dream house in Houston and downsize our house and figure out like a different version of like, if we're making it up, what does it look like? And so my call was to move to New Jersey next to my best friend, which is hilarious. Like, if you ever would have told me I would be living in New Jersey, I knew nothing about New Jersey besides the Jersey Shore. Like, I thought it was just like a weird, horrible place. But then I like visited her a couple times. It's like, wait, this is actually magical. Like, it's an hour from the beach, an hour from New York. Like, it's amazing. And so in the matter of, I guess we decided that in January of 2022, one of those years. Decided to move in January. By April, we had sold our big house in Houston and bought 2 houses because the idea was I had put everyone through having to live through projects in a construction zone by doing projects on the house. Everyone was sick of that, including me, because it's like I never got to get away from my work. I sat there and on the couch and looked across the hall at the stack of flooring that I had to install. And it's like I never escaped my work. So the idea is like sell the big house, buy a smaller house to live in because we were just a family of 3, and then buy a really dilapidated project house that I could do all my project houses in and work in. So that is what we refer to as Mulberry Manor. And that is what you see on all my socials. Like, it's mostly where I do all the projects. I still do a few of them at like the house we live in because it's more finished, and Mulberry Manor needed so much. We also refer to it as the meth house because it literally was so dilapidated and scary. Nobody wanted to take it on except me, who having owned 2 new builds, obviously knew everything there was to know about buying a house built in the 1840s that was in horrible condition. So that was a learning curve, to say the least. So I basically blow up my whole life on a quest to reinvent it. Rich agrees to it because he's also not happy. We still don't know the trajectory of staying or going. Like, definitely up in the air. Definitely no one knows. I'm still leaning towards leaving. TBD, in full transparency. But that was the first time, back to the real estate investing part, that was the first time I bought a house that wasn't mine as an investment property. And the fun story around this, so I find this house, right? And first of all, we bought all the houses remotely. Like, I didn't see at either house before we bought it, which is another level of what are you doing with your life? So I keep sending this house to Jessie, and I'm like, look, and Jessie's my best friend that I'm moving next to, if you for some reason don't know. So I'm sending her this listing and I'm like, look at this house. Like, I think it's it. And she's like, no, like, what are you talking about? It looked horrible, like horrible. Like, when you walk in the sunroom, there was all these like wooden fish all around the sunroom because they had used it as like an aquarium room. Of course, the aquarium spilled all over the floor, so the wood floors was rotted. This is the house that never stays dry either. There have been multiple leaking things throughout the process. We can get into that in a minute. But basically, in choosing this house, I keep sending it to her. It's like listed for like $235, and it is a dumpster fire. We know that the people just want to sell it as is, like they just want to be rid of it. Essentially, it was like an older woman who was moving in with her kids and had dementia, which was like so sad. So the kids are just trying to get rid of the house because they live in Indiana and they just want to be done with it. So they had posted all these photos of the basement, like all this work they did on the basement to waterproof it. But the photos on the listing made it look like the house was like flooded and horrible and broken. And they were trying to show like, we spent $19,000 like installing this sump pump and all this waterproofing. But it just looked like this house needs a lot and nobody wants to take it on except me. Okay, so we buy the house sight unseen. Besides a Zoom, Jessie does come walk through it. And she's like, okay, I finally see the potential. It's still really scary. Everyone's really horrified, but she's like, I could see it. So we buy the house, and then I get here. And I guess the backstory you need to know about this is, which I think I've told before on the show, but essentially my dad in college passed away of cancer, esophageal cancer, 2 years, super torturous, super intense. My junior year of college, losing him. We were real close. He was like my best friend. And he's the one that I like worked with, and essentially the segue into construction and real estate investing, and taught me how to use a drill and all of that. So I get here and there's one item left in the house, totally empty. On the sink, there's a bottle of soap that says Kirk's, and that's his name. It is a brand I have never seen before, never heard of before, and it's his name. And then on the garage, there's a sign that says Kirkbride. And I ask all the neighbors about it. They're like, we don't know what that is. It's like the lady's boyfriend, he had a connection to that name. And so he made this weird sign to put on the garage. And so it's like my dad's name is in 2 places. And I'm not one normally for like woo-woo stuff. Although after a year in this house, I totally am. There's been so many things that have happened that are just too wild to be logical. And so I just because I always had this feeling like I was supposed to have this house, even though it made no sense. Which is funny because real estate investing normally, if you're a rational person, especially if you're someone with a finance and economics background, what you would do is you'd plug all the numbers into Excel and it would tell you how much money you're going to make. And you would then evaluate if that house is a good deal or not and make your decision off of that. This was decided purely by a gut feeling. Basically on the heels of like, I've done everything logically up until now and that didn't work. And so now we're just going to wing it and follow our heart and go with our gut feelings and see if that works out. So TBD on the review of whether that works. We're still in the middle of the process. I just think you'd find that interesting because yeah, definitely not a logical choice. So I always felt like I was supposed to have this house, get the house, and there's my dad's name in 2 places. This has been the most intense project I have ever taken on. But the ways that it has like shaped me, made me face myself, challenged me, and all of that. It's like it is a personal development, personal growth project, and an investment property wrapped in one. Everything kept going wrong, from ripping out like the old plaster that's literally falling off the wall, which if you don't know plaster, they use these laths, so it looks like almost like a paint stick size of boards. And so there's like all of those attached to the studs, and then they take plaster and smear it across those. And the plaster essentially goes between the slats and forms like a little hook that's called a key. And so that's how the big, heavy plaster mud is held on the wall, essentially. So over time, with the house settling, with vibrations and things, those keys can break off, and then the plaster can start to separate from the wall and fall off, which is really fun. So I didn't know that was happening upstairs. So there was 2 bedrooms where we chose to rip out the plaster and lath and replace it with drywall. This also allowed us to get to some of the wiring, adding new lights, and also making sure the wiring that is 200 years old from 1840 was like functional and shored up. So that process was amazing. If you've ever ripped apart an old house, you know that it's like you make the house angry by making changes, and the house gets mad at you, and then it causes this spiral of other things going wrong. So we take out the plaster. Then we realize in one of the rooms under the window, the whole thing's rotted. The whole thing. So we have to completely reframe and add new windows. Then the contractors break a pipe upstairs, which is like radiant heat, which I didn't know about because from Texas, Oklahoma, Arizona, I had no idea this was a thing. But basically, the boiler heats the water and sends hot water through these pipes like a radiator or like through a baseboard. And it's the best kind of heat because it's not pushing air like a furnace and drying everything out. So it's the best kind of heat because it's good for that. It's also hotter. The only downside is that it's ugly. You have to have a baseboard heater. So anyway, the pipes where the water pumps through, one of the contractors broke. And so that spilled through the whole ceiling, leaked. There's a real fun video on TikTok of me like poking the ceiling because it made a bubble. Like when water collects behind paint, it makes a bubble. And so I'm popping the bubble and gagging because it was so gross. It smelled so bad. So that was one time the house got wet. The floors in front, water damage. The roof definitely leaking. Had to replace the whole roof. Office, which is what we're in now, I put up insulation and sheetrock and the speed board. Came in one day and there's like all this water like pooling. And it was because the roof was leaking. So we had to replace this whole roof and rip out a bunch of stuff. So it has been a process. And I think in normal real estate investing, you make your spreadsheet, you have an inspection, and you know what repairs you need to make. You create a budget for that and you make all the repairs. And then you either flip the house, sell it for a profit, you keep it as a long-term rental and rent it out, or you keep it as like a short-term rental and rent it on like Airbnb or Vrbo. We didn't really get to follow that template because it was just like one thing after another, surprises. And yeah, we're still in the middle of renovating. It's so fun. It's like everything is done out of order. Some rooms are completely finished with furniture. Others need to be totally ripped apart. So yeah, I wouldn't say we're doing this the most normal way, but it's definitely working and we're definitely close. Right now I'm doing the yard and then I'm going to pop back inside. Basically, we need to do the bathroom needs a little bit of work on the shower. The kitchen probably needs a full gut. The bedrooms are for the most part done. Living room's done. Dining room needs like paint and furniture. So we're getting close. The goal for this is, and I did have a spreadsheet, just so everyone knows, there was a spreadsheet, but it wasn't like the main driver of the decision. The goal for this house is to be an Airbnb and to be able to rent it out on a short-term basis, just because I really love that. I really love the idea of getting to not only renovate the house and have it be better, and instead of selling it, get to like furnish it with furniture and decorate and then have people like come experience that. Especially because it's like you can watch the project online of like me ripping all this stuff out, and then you could actually come stay in the space that you watched get renovated. Like that just seems so cool and such a natural extension of my brand. So that's plan one. Also, we're in like the cutest downtown ever, and you can actually walk to all these breweries and the coffee shop. The guy that owns the coffee shop lives like 2 doors down. It's just like a special, cute little neighborhood. So I think that would be really fun. Plan B, and you always have with real estate investment, you want to make like backup plans, but you would call it like your base case. Like, here's what we really want to do. If that doesn't work, the market changes. Here's like the backup plans where you still make money. So the backup plan would be a long-term rental, like have a tenant move in long-term, 12 months. And then the backup plan is if things really go south, you sell it and you hopefully make a profit or at least get out for what you put in so you don't lose money. So yeah, that's the plan, is that it's going to be an Airbnb, but like a special one, and one you can, it's like, instead of sharing affiliate links in my story, you could come like try the couch and see if you want to get it. So that's like, so far my real estate investing journey has just been buy a new build house, live in it and upgrade it and let it appreciate, sell it. Buy a better new build house, live in it, update it a lot because it was 2 years, sell it for a lot of money. And then now kind of split that into downgrade the house we live in so that it's more affordable, and then buy an investment property. So that's been my journey. And that has been from like somebody giving me a lump sum. By somebody, I mean my dad's life insurance from him passing away, taking a lump sum and just kind of growing it over time, like making money and rolling it into the next thing. There's obviously a lot of ways that can look. You can get loans based on the income of a property instead of your own income. You can use other people's money, create a deal where you have a lot of people putting money into a pot and you're doing it together. Lots of ways that real estate investing can look. But for me, it has to be integrated into my life and into my job, because my job is so closely tied with homes, and I'm doing a lot of brand work, doing a lot of projects. And so it just is natural for me to have a property that I'm doing that to. So it's functioning as an office, like it's where I go to work every day. It's functioning as an investment, and eventually it will function as passive income, as somewhere that I can rent out and make money. So that is the plan, and that is the wild and windy story of all my life and personal details. And I love that I said I wasn't going to share too much, because there it all is. So yeah, everything is very much in flux right now, but I think I just wanted to give a perspective of, instead of real estate investing being like numbers based and spreadsheet based, and here's how much you can make a month, and my wife and I quit our jobs to make this much a month. It's like, here's how it can fit into your life, and how like the journey and trajectory of your life can work with investing in and buying properties and developing them. And this is like the start, and it's a small scale. And I would obviously like to grow this and have a full portfolio of doing multiple properties. I also am thinking really hard about the ways that I can, like, I don't know, have a really big impact while investing and making money. One of the coolest examples I've seen of this is this lady on TikTok that buys old motels and she turns them into instead of a motel where it's like, like the ones where there's like maybe 20 rooms and the doors all face the street and they're usually lower budget and they're really struggling to keep up in this era of travel. And so they can oftentimes be a place where a lot of things occur, like drug deals or sketchiness, or because the rooms are priced so low, which not always, depending on the community, but they have a reputation and a stereotype in that sense. She's kind of taking them and buying these property that no one really wants. No one really wants the expense of having to manage a hotel in a struggling era when people are going to Airbnb or other things of the same price point that are better quality or safer or just more robust. Like you get a whole house versus a room, and she's turning them into studio apartments. So like each little room is a studio apartment. They're affordable. They're like $500 to $800 a month, I think, for the studio apartment, which I think is like, I don't know. It's just such a cool way to still be a real estate investor. Like she still makes money and she's doing this to make money, but she's created a way that's like you're serving people and you're providing housing that is affordable, especially for like younger people that don't want to have roommates. Like you're, a young professional and you don't want to have to live with 5 roommates, but you can't afford to live on your own, or you just don't want to burn all that money on rent. And so creating something affordable in this market where things just keep going up and up and up because of inflation and big corporations buying up all the single family homes. I'm thinking a lot about like how I can be mindful of that stuff so that I'm building an amazing portfolio, making a lot of money, also making an impact, and also incorporating like all the creativeness of it. Because I think a lot of times, or I guess initially I was kind of like not into real estate investing because I looked at it as people that were like flippers. They would buy a house, they put the cheapest possible materials to maximize their margin and resell it. And I think especially in the house I got, which is an 1840s house, like it's a historic home. It's been here almost 200 years. And so I feel an obligation to revitalize it, like honoring the history, honoring the fact that it's been here so long, and really invest in making it like amazing versus just there's so many houses in this neighborhood where people just bought this old house and just put the worst, like modern and the architecture doesn't fit. And it's just like poorly designed, poorly done. And clearly the driving strategy is profit. And that is just something that bothers me because I think there's a way to make profit and make amazing money doing things well, doing things intentionally, and doing things thoughtfully. So yeah, that's my goal. That's kind of my driving force right now is like after I finish this house, which is like my learning house where I struggled and cried on the floor many times and first learned how to hire out help. Like this is the first time I've hired anyone to help me with projects. Just because the scale of stuff, like I'm not going to hang 2 rooms of drywall by myself when I could hire someone to come in and do it in 2 days and it would take me 2 months. So learning how to outsource, learning that like I can do it. I have the knowledge to do it. I've done it before, but I don't have to. And actually by outsourcing, I'm freeing up time for myself to focus on more important parts of my business. I'm providing a job to someone, like I get to bless someone with work, which is amazing, like someone that needs work. And it's just more efficient. So this is like my era of accepting help and valuing that, because I think for the longest time, DIY for me was like proving I could do it by myself. Like I'm capable. And walking into hardware stores and having men not take me seriously, and that kind of fueling me as like, I will show you what is possible and I will break every stereotype and you will regret ever having thought that I needed your help, and I will make you challenge every assumption that you have about women in the trades. And so that was like my first era, which was very fun. But I think now I'm coming back into balance with like, that's amazing. And there's definitely a role for that, but it doesn't have to be exclusively that. And I can accept help. And yeah, so this is, I don't know, this episode is so fun because it's like my whole life story and personal development and real estate. But I think it's a wider lens and a bigger picture. Instead of focusing on the numbers and the strategy and how to make money, it's like, here's how real estate investing could fit into your life. And that is how it's been integrated into mine in kind of my path, of my career path. And yeah, so I guess that's most of it. TBD on the rest and how it's going to go. Like, we have a whole kitchen to gut and not a lot of money to make that happen. So like, this is also why we do DIY, is like, I do it myself so that I can make it happen with a not huge budget. So stay tuned to see the full process. And I hope that was helpful. And I hope that it gave you some insight into what real estate investing could look like for you in a way that integrates with your life and isn't necessarily like a side hustle or a career path or a thing that you're doing as work, something that you're just doing as part of your life as you live in your house. So yeah, check out my Instagram if you want to see the house and all of the nonsense that's gone on. TikTok too, there's quite a few videos about all the leaks and the transformations and how it's going. And stay tuned, because hopefully soon you can come stay in the house and see what it's like. I don't know when that's going to happen. My big goal is to get it like rented out by the fall, but I have no idea if we'll get there, because we have a whole kitchen to renovate, and those tend to be a long process. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed my long-winded life story, real estate journey. Connect with me on Instagram if you have questions. You can hop over to Make Space Pod, or you can see me and my projects on Never Skip Brunch. Yeah, that's it. I'll talk to you next week, and I can't wait to hear what you thought.
Thanks for listening. And if you've got more episodes to catch up on, binge on. Don't let me stop you. But if you've got a second, you should come say hi on Insta at MakeSpacePod. And if you're an overachiever, you can also leave a review, and I'll love you forever. If you're new here, hit that follow button to officially become a DIY queen and join all the amazing humans tuning in every week.